What's up guys? My name's Robin and I make stuff, and today I'm going to be talking about my palette, the colors I use. I'm going to do some side-by-side comparisons of the difference between Daniel Smith watercolors and the student grade Cotman watercolors by Winsor Newton. I have both of these. I use both of them. I get a lot of pushback about this is garbage, don't use it, blah, blah, blah. Listen, this is very inexpensive and watercolor can be very frustrating in the beginning. I want to take out as many hurdles as I possibly can to get you to where you're feeling like, oh, I could do this. Oh, this is not so difficult. Oh, I didn't have to spend so much money. This is a lot of paint compared to this. See the side by side? This tube right here in the United States costs about $12 to $14. This tube in the United States costs about $7. So half the price, you get so much more paint. Now the difference is this is going to be actual pigment. This is going to have more dye in it. It's not going to be as rich and bright and vibrant as this will be. We're going to compare them side by side. We're going to mix some colors. I'm going to show you the exact colors that I have on my palette. As always, if you find this video to be helpful, hit the like button. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to my channel. Let's check out my palette. This is my palette. This is a metal tray, a butcher tray. You can also use plastic, but I find that it's not going to break if you drop it. Plastic, also very inexpensive. The only thing I don't love about plastic is that when you mix your colors, they kind of float on the surface. My setup for any beginning artist is going to be 3 primary colors. That's red, yellow, and blue. That's how it rolls off my tongue. Red, yellow, blue. And then a burnt sienna or a brown. These are the Winsor Newton Cotman student grade watercolors. These are the ones that are more dye based. They're less expensive and you can use more of them. You can mess up more, try more things, and not feel like you're breaking the bank. So here's my red and my cadmium yellow. It's got a little bit of green going on because I typically mix it with blue and I'm not the best at washing out my brush. Don't come after me for that. Here's my ultramarine blue and my burnt sienna. These are the 2 that I use the most often, but I also have some oranges over here. This is a cadmium orange, and then this guy over there is an organic vermilion, which I really love. Organic vermilion. And this is like a yellow ochre. I have some other blues and things from a painting that I was doing, and I don't even remember what they are, but I just put a little bit in there. I know where they're at for the painting, and then I kind of move on. Now, there are a lot of artists who swear by using Payne's Gray. I'm not one of them. I prefer to make my darks by mixing complementary colors. You don't know what a complementary color is? Let me show you. Here we have red, yellow, and blue. Those are your 3 primary colors. If you mix those 3 colors together, you will get black or something very, very dark. If I mix red and yellow together, it makes what's in the middle of those orange. Directly across from that is blue. That's its complementary color. Then we have red, yellow, and blue all mixed together. This is kind of in that orange family. It's very earth tone. It works really well for a lot of applications. If I mix those 2 together, I will get a very dark color. If I mix these 2 together, I get green. If I mix these 2 together, I get orange. If I mix those 2 together, I get purple. I can mix these colors and create an entire palette. I can have a very simplified box of colors, the primary colors and a brown, and I can make all of the colors that I basically need. Find that when you're very first starting out, you get excited about all these different colors that you can get, and then you might have a box of colors like this, and it just becomes overwhelming. Start small. That's what I do. Feel free to do whatever you want to do. If you hate what I do, that's fine. Move along. Nothing to see here. Here's Daniel Smith. And here's the Winsor Newton Cotman. Can you see the difference between those? This Cotman color is much lighter, and this ultramarine by Daniel Smith is much darker, much richer in pigment. Let's put them on the paper and see what happens. I like to use a flat brush because it makes a nice little color swatch. And I'm just gonna be using a really lame mixed media book by Canson. If you're thinking this is not gonna turn out good because you're using garbage paper, just keep your opinions to yourself. Let's move on. So here is Cotman. This should go without saying, but I'm gonna say it anyways. Make sure you use water when you're painting with watercolor. I'm gonna wash my brush out, and then we'll get some of the ultramarine blue from Daniel Smith. You can see a little bit of a difference just in those colors, the way they look on the palette. Ooh, so pretty. We'll let those dry, and let's go to the next color. We're going to do cadmium yellow. A lot of times with a new tube of watercolor paint, you'll get this like gooey stuff that comes out that is just gum arabic. They put that in watercolor to keep it from drying out within the tube. So don't be alarmed. It's totally normal. Now, I didn't realize this, but I don't have any cadmium yellow by Daniel Smith. I tend to buy this 3-pack that has French ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, and then Hansa yellow. So I'm going to be using Hansa yellow as a comparison. You can see it looks slightly different side by side, but let's see how it dries in the end. This one and this one are much richer. I can just tell how they're drying. This one's just goopy. Let's try that again. There we go. Can you tell a difference? And you might not be able to tell a difference. That's the whole point of this little video. Let's go to our alizarin crimson. Daniel Smith alizarin crimson, Cotman student grade alizarin crimson. Here's the Cotman one, and here's Daniel Smith. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but I can tell. Look at how much richer the one on the left is. That's Daniel Smith. Same color label, a little bit of water. Get some of that Cotman on here. And I want to have enough of it so that I can see it on my paper. Too much water and it will be lighter. Not enough water and it'll be like painting with acrylic, and that's not the goal. And then Daniel Smith. It already looks different just mixing it on the palette. Let's see what happens on the paper. I'm surprised. Those are actually looking pretty similar. This is exactly why I have my students start with Cotman, because you're not going to be able to tell that much of a difference. The real difference is when you start to mix the colors together and the burnt sienna. Just look at the tube. Daniel Smith, Cotman. Huge difference. Let's see what these look like. Cotman, Daniel Smith. Can you tell a difference? Okay, so we're going to do the Cotman one first. It's nice and orangey. See how it's in that orange family? Okay, Cotman on the top. And now Daniel Smith. Look at the difference side by side just on the palette. They look completely different. Let's see what happens when I put it on the paper. Slightly different. The Cotman color is more orange, more warm, whereas Daniel Smith is a cooler version of burnt sienna. So here's our difference in colors. We have this Hansa yellow down here. That's Daniel Smith, and this is the Cotman cadmium yellow. Daniel Smith ultramarine blue, Cotman ultramarine blue. Alizarin crimson, Daniel Smith, Cotman. Burnt sienna, Daniel Smith, Cotman. If we try and mix ultramarine blue with our burnt sienna, let's see what happens. Here's our burnt sienna. This is Cotman. Here is our ultramarine blue. I find that with these Cotman student grade colors, they tend to be a little on the cloudy side or even milky when they are mixed together. And that's the challenge that I have found, is that they're not super opaque, not very rich in the pigment when they're mixed together. But we're gonna do a side by side and we'll see what happens. Doing little studies like this where you put some swatches on paper are really helpful. There's that color. It's pretty milky, but that's about as dark as I can get it. So we're gonna put that on the paper. Cotman, it's pretty good black, yeah? Now we're gonna do the same thing with Daniel Smith. Daniel Smith, burnt sienna. A little more water in there. There we go. You want it to move around. If you're having a hard time with the paint moving around, you just add a little more water. I'm putting that ultramarine blue in. This is the Daniel Smith one right here. This had a lot of paint in it, but it's kind of this milky color, and it was very hard to get it to feel more saturated. Okay, so here's this. It's pretty close. Might be a tad more blue, but I'm gonna put it on the paper. I don't know. Can you tell the difference? Guess we'll have to wait and see when it dries. Let's do purple. So purple is gonna be blue and red. Our Cotman color, we'll do some blue, and then we'll do red. This was our Cotman color. It's a nice purple. Maybe a little more blue. I want there to be enough paint in here. If it has too much water or it's too translucent, it's not gonna go on nice and opaque. Added a little bit more water so I can scoop as much of this onto my brush. So we'll do Cotman. Now if you didn't know, watercolor tends to dry a little bit lighter. Getting some of that ultramarine blue by Daniel Smith, alizarin crimson by Daniel Smith. Trying to get as close to that color as I can, but these are so much more pretty. Look at that, that's beautiful. I'm gonna put this down and we'll try to mix that other color again. Here's my Daniel Smith. It's such a cool purple. If we wanted it to be lighter, we would just add a little bit of water, and I would come in here, get a little bit more, so now you can see really what that color is. It's a really nice purple. Okay. Let's see if I can get that as dark. Let's go back and revisit the Cotman version. See if we can get it to be just a little closer to that richness that we get with the Daniel Smith. So adding the alizarin crimson, a little more blue. I'm just comparing side by side. Maybe a little more of this red. This is why I have all of my beginning students start with just the primary colors. If you know how to mix paint and understand how to get and create all of the colors of the rainbow, you'll be light years ahead of someone who just starts out by going and buying tubes of color. Sure, that's the easy way, but do you know how to make this purple? Look at how beautiful that turned out. We'll let this dry and see how they turn out. This one I didn't let dry because who cares? We're not comparing that one anyway. It had too much gum Arabic in it. Here's our row of Cotman, and here's our row of Daniel Smith, and then Cotman, Daniel Smith. I think that we can safely say that, yes, the Daniel Smith row is a little more opaque, a little more rich in color and value, but it may not be easy to tell. And that's the real takeaway from this. This is definitely darker and richer than this is. Might be hard to tell, but you can tell right there. A little more paper, seeing a little more paper through there, not so much here, except for where it kind of dried funny. And then same here, not so much paper here, but a little more paper showing through there. Same here. And then this color is just slightly different. And this, maybe I didn't have enough paint on there. Those are the colors that I use. You can create almost any color that you want. I keep my colors basically in those corners and kind of wiggle around from there. I hope you liked hanging out with me. I will see you next time that I make stuff.